In 1968, what started as a promotional stunt for the Las Vegas Mint Hotel became one of the most important races in American automotive history. Each year, the Mint 400 grew in size and stature. Each year, the best off-road racers from around the world came to compete. Celebrities, famed authors, worldwide media attention, all building the Mint into a spectacle of speed. Lost for nearly 20 years, the Mint was reborn in 2008 and has once again become the stuff of legend. To win, they must have a perfect day. They must overcome the jagged and tortuous Mojave Desert, blinding dust. There is no room for mistakes, no margin for error. 400 race teams on 400 miles of off-road hell. Over 20,000 spectators, $50 million in custom-built off-road machinery. The Mint 400 has no equal. It is the ultimate test of man and machine. It is the great American off-road race. This is the 50th anniversary BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400, powered by Monster Energy on the World of X Games.
That was an amazing run. Nice. Oh, my brain! Goodness me. Oh, are you serious?
Thursday, March 8th, 2018. It's 48 hours before the 50th anniversary of the Mint 400. Nearly 120 trick trucks, Class 1 cars, and 6,100 trucks have assembled for the 6th annual Method Race Wheels time trials.
Qualifying, you almost throw all caution to the wind. You know, there's a lot of very, very fast guys here that go for it. And you want to be up front, so you got to push really hard. Every once in a while, somebody crashes out here. We just hope it's not us. We don't plan on doing that.
Unlike their racing counterparts, these select 3 classes are allowed to compete for starting position on race day. Their goal? Go fast. Very fast. Getting a good start position at the Mint is like taking the pole at the Indy 500. Every overall winner in the past 8 years has qualified in the top 10 position. The pressure is immense. The trick trucks and Class 1 cars took their turn qualifying first, and as the top unlimited racers tore off the start line and out into the desert, some familiar names quickly rose to the top of the leaderboard. Local Las Vegas racer B.J. Baldwin ripped down the 6-mile qualifying loop and quickly posted the fastest time of the day. He was followed by off-road champion Jason Voss, Josh Daniel, and Luke McMillan. Daniel, driving the RPM trick truck owned by Clyde Stacy, posted a blistering time of 4:36, which moved him into first overall. Victor Gruber of Lake Elsinore, California, came screaming through next. They put down the second fastest time of the day behind Daniel. Off-road legend and defending Mint 400 champion Rob MacCachren took his turn next and looked fast. Rob ripped across the treacherous and unforgiving race course and ended up squarely in third. Next up, it was another Las Vegas local and former Mint 400 champion, Bryce Menzies. Bryce looked smooth and fast in his Geyser Brothers built trick truck as he traversed the punishing qualifying loop. He ended up 0.7 of a second off Rob Mac's time and sat in fourth for the time being. One by one, the seasoned field of racers took their turn running the infamous Apex Loop. This year's course was especially brutal and featured some nasty square-edged ruts. One by one, the competitors powered through it. Up next was Harley Letner from Orange, California, racing for U Theory in his 1501 Class 1 buggy. Harley qualified second fastest in 2017 and won his class overall. Letner went flat out, diving and wheeling as hard as possible, and picked up precious half seconds in turn after turn. When the dust settled, he posted an incredible time of 4:33 and shot to the top of the leaderboard. Off-road legend Larry Rossler from Imperial, California came screaming through next. Larry is off-road royalty. and is one of only a few drivers with such an illustrious record still competing today. He helped Roger Norman earn his Mint 400 victory in 2010 and proved today that he hasn't lost a step. UTV race champion turned trick truck driver Johnny Angle took off next. Angle runs a successful UTV company called UTV Inc. in Mesa, Arizona, but spends all of his free time practicing and preparing for racing. For someone relatively new to the trick truck class, he has quickly become a force to contend with. He landed just outside the top 20 at 4:48. Next, it was the young racer from Tecate, Baja California, racing for RPM, 23-year-old Carlos Apdaly Lopez. Abdali ripped down the qualifying course like a bat out of hell. Lopez led the Mint 400 on the final lap in 2017 when tragedy struck and he lost his motor. He was clearly out to make up for that loss and threw down a blistering time of 4:35, putting him in second place. As the rest of the trick truck and Class 1 racers took their turn, the standouts included number 1553 Ray Griffin, who drove his Class 1 buggy into 6th place. Troy Herbst, who put down the 8th fastest time, and two-time Mint 400 champion Justin Lofton, who landed in 9th. Here's a look at the fastest qualifiers for the 2018 Method Race Wheels time trials in trick truck and Class 1. Not to be outdone, 45 6100 trucks lined up next, and one by one blasted out into the northern Las Vegas desert, hoping to land a top qualifying spot for Saturday's race. The 6100 class is a V8 spec class with limitations on the engine and suspension that make it a competitive and relatively affordable driver's class. Rafael Navarro from Temecula, California set a blistering pace on his run of 5:02 that would earn him a second-place starting spot. Heath Shoup out of Murrieta, California came through moments later and earned the 4th fastest time of the day. Nick Mills came blasting through next in his Baja Designs Geyser Brothers built truck, followed by Monster Energy's Bobby Picoy and his Brenthel Industries machine. Simmer, Guglielmo, Householder, and Tulse were all fast and placed in the top 10 finishers. But it was Ryan Millen out of Huntington Beach, California, racing for Toyota and BFGoodrich tires, who clocked the fastest time of the day by a mere second. Here's a look at the fastest qualifiers for the 2018 Method Race Wheels time trials in the 6100 class.
Name's Jeremy Walters. I'm the recycling coordinator here in Las Vegas with Republic Services. We're out in Jean, Nevada. It's a big OHV area. Recreational users come out here, ride dirt bikes, ATVs, side-by-sides, trucks, crawlers, you have it. We're out here to do a big cleanup today. It's really telling to see the amount of people that have shown up and the enthusiasm that they bring along to come out and, again, take time out of their Saturday to do something for the greater good of everybody. You know, just about 2.5 hours, we had all 6 of these 28 and 35 yard containers filled up. That's almost 200 cubic yards of garbage that we've pulled out of this landscape. It's definitely something that we've got to work towards, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
"30 miles south of the glitz and glamour of Las Vegas, just over half of the 400 Mint 400 competitors were preparing to wage war against each other and Mother Nature. Prim Resorts plays host to the official Mint 400 start-finish line each year, and the limited racers began to line up 2 by 2 behind Buffalo Bill's Hotel and Casino. The Mint is broken up into 2 races, the limited race in the morning and the unlimited race in the afternoon. 2018 Miss Mint 400 Bailey Hughes dropped the green flag. Brock Hedger and Wheeler Morgan flew off the start line. Brock immediately moved out front, coming out of turn 1. Christian Fessler and Peter Hodges were next in Class 10, and Fessler put the power of his Alumacraft machine to work. In the 5,000 class, Travis Chase and Justin Bean Smith went toe-to-toe. followed by the Crawford-built Subaru Crosstrek, driven by Dustin and Parker Grabowski, and the rest of the hungry chaseback. In the Pro UTV class, Monster Energy's Mark Burnett battled Polaris factory driver Brandon Schuler. Another Mint 400 champion, Brandon Sims, took off, followed by factory Can-Am racer and UTV world champion Phil Blurton, Mitch Guthrie Jr., Justin Lambert, and Craig Scanlon, SMG Motorsports. Next up, it was trophy lights, and Marsden and Bragg went door to door, followed by Spitz and McMurray. And it was Journey Richardson, Class 2000, minutes later. Cody Nygren and Mike DeLay ripped past the crowd, followed by Dodge Pullman, Kristen Matlock, Seth Quintero, Reese Millen. In 7100, Jason Pritchard and Robbie Cockrell took off, followed by the sportsman class and nearly 20 vintage race vehicles. Over 200 limited vehicles in 20 different classes left the start line in a hail of dirt. Some would race a single lap in 6 hours and claim victory. Others would complete 3 of the Mint's hellish laps in just under 7 hours. Phil Blurton exploded onto the off-road scene in 2017 when he won the UTV World Championship, the Best in the Desert Pro Turbo Points Championship, and was named Rookie of the Year that year. His performance earned him a full-blown factory sponsorship and sent his fabrication shop, No Limit Race Development, into overtime with new car builds and custom UTV parts orders. Phil's background in motorcycle racing, combined with his dad's 30-plus years of desert racing experience, are paying huge dividends as the young racer prepares to tackle his second Mint 400 outing.
I'm Phil Blurton. I'm from Auburn, California. I own No Limit RD. We build race UTVs and play cars as well. We're racing the 944 Turbo Can-Am. We got into racing UTVs about a year ago, and it's really taken off from there. I think when I was still in diapers, maybe like 2 years old, I was riding a quad around the lawn. Then I went to dirt bikes. We did a bunch of dirt bike riding, just like fun trail riding. And then as I got older, I was like, I want to start racing dirt bikes. And my dad was always like, let's get into go-karts. And I wanted to do dirt bikes, so we did the dirt bike thing for years. Once I started having to work, I got off riding bikes, got into rock crawlers. It was a lot safer, it was slow speed. Then I got really into the fabricating side of the rock crawlers. Got completely out of actually being in the car and just went fully into building.
Phil's father, Phil Sr., is widely credited for helping develop Class 34 and 44 in the 80s, which was based on the Honda Odyssey chassis and could arguably be called the first UTV class.
There was Class 34 and 44, and there was 250cc for the 34 class and up to 500 for the 44 class. Called Sal Fish at Score and said, you know, I've got a group of guys and we'd love to come down and race Baja. He allowed us to start 34 and 44. And it took 14, I think there was a little more than 14 of us, went to the San Felipe 250 in 1982. And we really had to have that many of us because back then we could only go 25 miles before we had to refuel. So it was really a team effort because without all the other teams, you wouldn't finish the race. You always hate to brag about your own children, but if you don't, you're not proud of them, and I'm very proud of Phil. Phil's become the man I've always tried to be. Humble guy, he takes the time, he's methodical about what he does. I love it how he designs his own stuff, builds the same stuff, and drives it. You know, we've had a fantastic year this last year. I'm very proud of him, and his mom's extremely proud of him as well.
So we have a local series here that the UTV class has evolved to be actually a pretty competitive class. The day before the first race, I had a stock UTV here, built a cage, threw it on the night before, went out there with a raw cage, raced the race and won the first race. And then I was hooked from there, raced the whole series, swept that series. Then I said, oh, let's go desert racing. So we went and raced Bora, our local series. We swept that. And then me and my dad were like, well, let's go race Best in the Desert where it's the best of the best. Built a whole new car and showed up and raced the whole series with a goal to go try to win it the first year. Winning the UTV World Championships was definitely the best thing that ever happened for us. Getting Can-Am to have factory support behind us after winning that race has helped tremendously. We built the Can-Am just because it was a new cool car, you know. We'd never even driven one until the first race we drove it in. Initially we built it for the business to kind of go, hey, here's a new cool car that not a lot of people have. Now every race you see more and more Can-Ams coming. Having the factory support definitely is nice. Luckily last year being our rookie year, I was fortunate enough to run almost any tire I wanted, and I ran different tires throughout the season. Throughout all my rock crawling career, BFG was always the company to go with. You know, it's like if you were rock crawling, BFG was the one to have. Always had BFGs on all my daily drivers, and now to have this 32-inch BFG tire on the Can-Am is going to be awesome. I think tires are your most important thing racing. We won UTV World Championships by 17 seconds. If there was a flat tire there, you're not winning the race. Vegas to Reno, I think the race took us like right around 12 hours. I think we won by like 1 minute and 30 seconds. Well, one flat tire would have taken us out of Vegas to Reno. So having a tire you can count on is definitely a key part of the race program. Now that we've won UTV World Championships, the Mint 400's on the bucket list this year. You know, it's such an awesome race. We're gonna do everything we can to try to win this year. It's a brutal course, it's dusty, but it's fun. I mean, that's the best part about racing is the rougher the track, the better. We're excited to take on the Mint this year.
Over 200 of the world's best off-road racers have ripped off the start line at the 50th anniversary of the Great American Off-Road Race. And right now, former Mint 400 champion Brock Hedger is out front with a commanding lead in Class 10. Wheeler Morgan was right on Hedger's tail, however, waiting for him to make a mistake. Further back, Gutierrez had the gas pedal mashed. Justin Bean Smith continued to mix it up with Grabowski and Mike Belk in the 5,000 class. Brandon Schuler and Brandon Sims were being chased down by the 2017 UTV World Champion Phil Blurton. Behind Phil, Justin Lambert was screaming through the pack, as was Monster Energy's Mark Burnett. In Trophy Light, Craig Spitz was making moves early. Meanwhile, Greg Bragg misjudged a whoop section and went for a tumble down the course. Dodge Pullman, meanwhile, who started 21st, setting a blistering pace. Seth Quintero and Kristen Matlock were right behind him, though. Christian Hammerskold and Travis Williams managed to save their cars after hitting some huge G-outs, but others behind them weren't so lucky. Back up front, Brock Hedger came blazing through the infield and in and out of his pit, still in first place in Class 10. Peter Hodges and Christian Fessler came through in 4th and 5th on corrected time. Meanwhile, Brad Lovell was having a great race in the Vintage Open class, while 2017 Mint 400 champion Tommy Croft battled the brutal Mint race course in his old Chenoweth buggy. Up ahead, Phil Blurton continued to press forward and was catching and passing the slower Class 10 cars. Factory Polaris driver Brandon Sims was still physically ahead of Blurton. Justin Lambert, who left 58th off the start line, had passed dozens of cars on course and was gaining momentum with every turn. Journey Richardson continued to press hard in her VW-powered race car, while Jeremy Henderson was playing catch-up and looking for Jason Pritchard, the leader in the 7100 class. Spencer Lowe came zipping by in Vintage Open, running his old Nissan like a pro. He was in first place. And Baja 1000 champion Reese Millen was dominating the Pro Unlimited UTV class. He started 10th off the line and was already in first place on corrected time. Suddenly, as Brock Hedger, the Class 10 leader, wound his way through the infield, disaster struck. Fortunately, the Best in the Desert retrieval team got him back on the rubber, and he was able to maintain his lead. Although, Fessler and Gutierrez were now right on his tail. Mike Belk and Justin Bean Smith battled back and forth on their second lap. Dodge Pullman, who started 22nd off the line, had moved into 9th by the end of lap 1. Behind Dodge was the young prodigy Seth Quintero, who had moved from 16th to 3rd place on lap 2. Kristen Matlock, meanwhile, sat in 4th place, waiting for Dodge or Seth to make a mistake. Brock Hedger maintained his lead in Class 10, though he was now missing his roof from his earlier rollover. Peter Hodges remained right outside his dust trail, and Christian Fessler stayed in the mix in 6th place on their second lap. Arnaldo Gutierrez was having a fantastic race. He remained in 2nd place and continued to drive like a bat out of hell. Several hours later, on the 3rd and final lap of the limited race, Phil Blurton remained out front physically with a commanding lead. Monster Energy's Mark Burnett had moved into 3rd place on corrected time and was still attacking. But it was factory Polaris racer Justin Lambert who was shocking the leaderboard. Justin was 1st on corrected time and was showing no signs of slowing down. It was a dogfight to the finish in the Pro UTV class. As the limited race warriors made a final sprint for the finish, it was Brock Hedger who took the Class 10 victory and the overall limited race win. In the Pro UTV class, Phil Blurton finished 1st physically, but in a stunning twist of events, Justin Lambert of Cognito Motorsports clinched the victory from behind on corrected time. He outpaced Blurton by a mere 50 seconds. Here's a look at all of the limited class winners from the BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400, powered by Monster Energy. The Mint 400 has been a pillar of American automotive racing for over 50 years. It all started in 1968, when Las Vegas Mint Hotel executives created the inaugural Mint 400 Del Webb Desert Rally. NASCAR legends Mel Larson and Parnelli Jones were tapped to promote and compete at the race, and over 100 vehicles showed up to do battle. The following year, racing icons Mickey Thompson, Bob and Al Unser, and actors Steve McQueen and Lee Majors joined the star-studded event. By 1970, the Mint grew to over 300 entries, making it one of the biggest races in automotive history at the time. In 1971, Gonzo author Hunter S. Thompson wrote his famous Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas article while covering the Mint for Sports Illustrated. He wrote, "In some circles, the Mint 400 is a far, far better thing than the Super Bowl, the Kentucky Derby, and the Lower Oakland Roller Derby finals all rolled into one. This race attracts a very special breed." Hunter's article was adapted into a novel and later made into a major motion picture starring Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro, paying tribute to the Mint's importance in American pop culture. Another important ambassador for the growth of the Mint was the marketing genius KJ Howe. KJ joined the Mint Hotel publicity staff in the early 70s and later created the Girls of the Mint 400. The beauty pageant launched the careers of countless models and actresses, including Vanna White and Linda Carter, and added class and sophistication to the race. For the next 20 years, the Mint continued to host the top off-road champions from around the world, including Ivan Stewart, Rod Hall, Walker Evans, Fritz Kreuer, Jack Flannery, Larry Ragland, and Larry Rossler, as well as Indy 500 legends Rick Mears and Roger Ward. They made up a growing list of world-class drivers that came to compete at the Mint. But in 1988, the Las Vegas Mint Hotel was sold, and the race organizers disbanded. The world-famous Mint 400 slipped into obscurity and was forgotten for nearly 2 decades. In 2008, the famed race came roaring back to life. And since then, a virtual who's who of off-road racing's top drivers have taken home the overall win. Chuck Hovey and Brian Collins, Scott and Andy McMillan, Larry Rossler and Roger Norman, B.J. Baldwin, Robbie Gordon, and Bryce Menzies each have had their moment on top. Andy McMillan won the famed race a second time in his career in 2014. And Justin Lofton shocked the world by winning back-to-back victories in 2015 and 2016. Last year, it was Las Vegas native and living off-road legend Rob MacCachren who took home the gold. The Mint 400 is owned by the Martelli Brothers, who've spent over a decade documenting the explosive growth of desert racing with their production company Mad Media. The two worked closely with the late Casey Folks and the Best in the Desert Racing Association to find a new home for the brutal contest. and have restored the Mint 400 to its former glory. The Mint has once again become a beacon for the entire off-road industry and earned its distinction as the Great American Off-Road Race. Nearly 200 of the world's top unlimited off-road racers began to line up at the Prim Valley Mint 400 start-finish line, ready to wage war. Veteran voice of the Octagon, Bruce Buffer, began to announce the start of the 50th anniversary of the Great American Off-Road Race in true Las Vegas style.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live from Las Vegas for the 2018 BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400, powered by Monster Energy.
Over 25,000 off-road race fans were on hand to witness history in the making. It was an unusually cool day with light rain in the air, and that would definitely be a factor for controlling the dust.
Yeah, I mean, I think the weather's actually pretty good. We're starting at 7th. A little bit of rain would be good because it can knock some down the dust down, but they say around 5 it's supposed to get heavier and heavier, so we'll see how it goes.
I'm feeling really good. Last year we qualified 4th, ended up winning the race, so this year we're 5th. There's more entries in this second race today than there was last year, so I think lap traffic is going to play a pretty big part of this race, especially with all the Ultra 4 guys in here. The speed difference I think is pretty big, so maybe we get a little bit of rain, that'll help us get through the dust. So I feel real good about today. Hopefully we can repeat.
The 2018 BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400 Grand Marshal Sal Fish dropped the green flag, and they were off. Harley Letner, who qualified fastest at the Method Race Wheels time trials, was first off the line, uncontested. His reward for beating out the entire field and earning the pole position. Next up, it was RPM teammates Apdaly Lopez and Josh Daniel. The two pulled no punches and went door to door, careening through the infield. Lopez got the best of Daniel and pulled out front. Rob Mack and Victor Gruber left next, and while Gruber took a questionable inside line, it still wasn't enough to catch the 2017 Mint 400 champion who surged out front. Then it was Bryce Menzies and Ray Griffith, who blasted off the start line and stayed neck and neck through turn 1. Followed by Justin Lofton and Troy Herbst, Mills and Lopez, a pack of Hundrey 6100 trucks, and a fleet of determined desert warriors. The 2018 BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400, powered by Monster Energy on ABC. Brought to you by BFGoodrich Tires. High-performance tires for those with a passion for driving in virtually any environment. And Monster Energy, a lifestyle in a can. And Polaris Razor. Unleash the beast with the all-new Razor Turbo S. And Method Race Wheels. Lighter, stronger, faster. And Odyssey Battery, setting the new standard for power, life, and durability. Nearly 200 of the world's greatest off-road warriors have left the start line at the 50th anniversary of the Great American Off-Road Race. And right now, they're being led by Harley Letner in his U-Theory Class 1 buggy out onto their first 3 120-mile laps. To win, they'll have to have a near-perfect race. Less than a minute behind Harley, the young Apdaly Lopez from Baja California was giving chase. Just behind Lopez, it was Josh Daniel for another RPM trick truck owned by Clyde Stacy. The two teammates were being chased by 2017 Mint 400 champion and Las Vegas local Rob MacCachren. Rob raced up the Joshua Tree Highway and began to narrow in on Daniel. Back up in the lead, Harley Letner was still screaming out front, followed by Lopez and his teammate Josh Daniel. Rob MacCachren remained in 4th in his BFGoodrich Tires equipped trick truck. Victor Gruber and Bryce Menzies gave chase in 5th and 6th place, followed by Ray Griffith and Troy Herbst. Further back in the chase pack, Brian Parkhouse was running strong. He was just ahead of number 1547, Pat McCarthy. In the 6100 class, Ryan Millen remained out front after a good starting position during qualifying, followed minutes later by Nick Mills, who had already moved ahead several positions on the course. Terry Householder was reeling in the drivers ahead of him in the thick Nevada dust. Jason Voss and Justin Lofton continued to push the pace from mid-pack. The mid-400 overall win had eluded Jason thus far, but Lofton is a two-time champ. Both were a serious threat from any position on the course. Up ahead, Harley Letner was putting on a clinic. The young third-generation race driver from Irvine, California, was driving a fast and nimble Class 1 car. He was out to prove he could beat the heavier but more resilient trick trucks chasing him down. He clocked over 130 miles per hour racing across the Gene-Dry lake bed. Behind him, the order of the lead pack remained largely unchanged. Apdaly Lopez remained on Letner's tail, just ahead of Josh Daniel, Rob MacCachren, and Victor Gruber. Bryce Menzies sat in fifth, biding his time and waiting for the leaders to make a mistake. Ray Griffith, meanwhile, had his work cut out for him. For him to catch Letner, he would have to pass 5 of the most seasoned off-road racers on the planet. The chase pack ripped across the dry lake bed at speeds near 140 miles per hour. While up ahead, Letner hit a section of large rollers that tested his suspension. The modern off-road trick truck has nearly 3 feet of travel in the shocks, which allows it to float across obstacles that would destroy most vehicles at much slower speeds. Letner hit the Vision Wheel shooting range and skipped across the top of the treacherous whoops. Abdali, meanwhile, was playing it smart. He was staying outside of Letner's dust, waiting for him to make a mistake. Behind Lopez, Josh Daniel was playing it smart as well, but Josh now had Mint 400 champion Rob MacCachren chasing him down. Rob had caught and passed Gruber and was picking up the pace incrementally, applying forward pressure. Bryce Menzies came floating through next and was zeroing in on Gruber. Ray Griffith was still holding strong in 7th, meanwhile, an impressive feat considering the chase pack forming behind him. The leaders roared through the gravel quarry next, a tighter, more technical section of the course. Another twist in an already difficult race course. The Mint 400 is more than just an off-road competition. It's an entire week of festivities. This year, the 50th anniversary of the Great American Off-Road Race kicked off with a very special VIP event, dubbed the Legends Rally. The Legends Rally is a professional UTV tour company that provides guided UTV rides with exquisite cuisine on the best trails in Baja California. This year, the group organized the first ever Mint 400 Legends Rally on some of the most historic and scenic trails in Nevada, just west of the current Mint course. The group was led by 01 Odyssey owner Earl Desidero, who also supplied ready-to-race cars for the Mint. The following day, the 6th annual Mint 400 four-wheel parts vehicle procession powered by Odyssey Battery stormed down the Las Vegas Strip with over 150 race vehicles. Tens of thousands of Las Vegas locals and visitors cheered as over $25 million in off-road racing machinery roared by. The parade ended at Atomic Liquors for the official kickoff party, which is always a hit with the race teams. Later that evening, another new event for the Mint 400 was hosted at the Kitchen at Atomic. The first annual Dinner of Champions hosted some of the greatest champions of off-road racing from the past and the present, including KJ Howe, Rob MacCachren, and Rod Hall. On Thursday, the Mint 400 took over historic Fremont Street East and held the first of 2 days of Tech and Contingency, which showcased half of the 400 race vehicles who slowly pushed past over 250 vendors and partners of the event. Each race vehicle was carefully examined during a technical safety inspection, and over 25,000 off-road enthusiasts showed up to meet their favorite drivers, collect off-road memorabilia, get autographs, and shop for off-road parts and accessories. Later that evening, the Mint 400 crowd gathered on Fremont Street once again to cheer on the top off-road pit crew teams in the sport as they took center stage for the 7th annual Method Race Wheels Pit Crew Challenge. The best mechanics in the sport went head-to-head for cash and prizes from Fox Racing, BFGoodrich, Impact Racing, and Rigid Industries. In the 6100 class, defending champs GHA Racing came out of the gate hot with a blistering fast time. They all did battle, round after round, but in the end it was the team of Householder Motorsports that knocked GHA off the throne with a time of 54.8 seconds. The trick truck class was stacked this year, with heavyweights like MacCachren Motorsports, U Theory, and RPM Racing, but they were all knocked out in the first round. Last year's runner-up team, Ready Gunner, was able to change two 40-inch tires on their trick truck in just 45.4 seconds, besting the 59.4 second time of the crew of Victor Gruber and Dale Dondell. The night was capped off with the crowning of a new Miss Mint. Former Miss Mint winners include Wheel of Fortune's Vanna White and Wonder Woman Linda Carter. This year, Mint 400 owners Matt and Josh Martelli were looking for 6 finalists who personified the history and heritage of the Miss Mint competition and celebrated its past styles and glory. Ashley Figueroa, Bailey Hughes, Jana Breslin, Tia McDonald, Olivia Gray, and Leslie Andreas spent 2 days with Mint 400 founding father KJ Howe and Spanish Tony of the Gentleman's Guide to Racing doing a host of fun and empowering activities to determine a winner. After tests of shooting ability, off-road driving prowess, and wine tasting, Bailey Hughes was crowned Miss Mint for 2018. Festivities for the Great American Off-Road Race continued on Friday with a second day of tech and contingency on historic Fremont Street. Hundreds of off-road vendors, teams, and manufacturers greeted a crowd of over 20,000, making the 50th Mint 400 one for the record books. Still in 6th place physically, Bryce Menzies ripped into the Fox Proving Grounds and towards remote Pit B. The racers had the option to take fuel, tires, and swap drivers at each pit, but in the trick truck class, this strategy would play out at the main pit. Up ahead, Rob MacCachren left the pit and ripped up and over the hillside and down past a large spectator area. Rob made driving over 3-foot ruts and whoops at 100 miles an hour look easy. Minutes later, the lead pack hit chokers and blasted through the sandy ruts out towards the final prim dry lake bed in a sprint towards the end of lap 1. The order remained: Letner, Lopez, Daniel, MacCachren, Gruber, and Menzies in the top 6 positions. The Mint 400, meanwhile, was taking its toll on drivers and equipment. Its current victim, the number 55 U Theory trick truck of Anthony Turzo. Turzo started in the 15th row after qualifying 29th, but would have to stop and replace his shredded tire before continuing on. One by one, the race leaders came roaring into the infield. A crowd on hand of 25,000 watched as they came flying across the dirt and into the main pit area. Seconds later, Apdaly Lopez, still in 2nd place physically, stopped in his pit for fuel and a new set of rear tires. He was in and out in just over 30 seconds. As the lap times were calculated and corrected for start position, it was Lopez in first, with a lap time of 1 hour, 47 minutes, and 22 seconds, followed by Letner, who was a mere 2 seconds off. Meanwhile, still in the trenches on their first lap, the 4400 King of the Hammers racers were slugging it out. Veteran Shannon Campbell was running first on corrected time, followed by Lauren Healy and Shannon's son Waylon Campbell. 2017 King of the Hammers winner Jason Scherer, meanwhile, held down 4th place. For Jason, A Mint 400 win would put him one step closer to winning a Triple Crown event. Hailing from Danville, California, Jason Scherer has been involved in rock crawling and off-road racing for nearly 20 years and has stood on the podium at many races.
I got into off-road when I was really young. My best friend growing up's family was into off-roading and jeeping. First car's 16. I'm telling my parents I'm spending the night at his house. He's telling his parents he's spending the night at my house, and we're on Rubicon. We would try to get up different little sections, Walker Hill and through the sluice box and all that stuff. We had to make it through to challenge ourselves, so we put that pressure on ourselves at a young age. There wasn't really rock crawling competitions until probably 98, 99. And I didn't have a car that was capable of competing at the time, so I started off as a spotter. I was the guy pulling on the rope and stacking rocks and loved it. And once I was able to build up my Jeep to be able to compete, I started doing that, and that was 2001. I think that I was just inherently competitive. I wanted to win, and I wanted to get out there and figure out what it took. I wasn't mechanically inclined. My family wasn't into building cars, and I didn't really know that much about it, but I wanted to learn. I was out there doing a spring over kit in my driveway and putting tires and wheels together and doing all the stuff that got us to that stage where we could go make the cars capable. And we went from finishing last at the event we went to start it all off to where we won the season finale at Donner Ski Ranch in 2001. And you know, I was still driving that Jeep to work every day. It was still my daily driver, and we were out there competing in it. I went from that stage to where the next level up was a competition buggy. Got kind of serious right then and there.
Jason grew up in the rock crawling community well before it was a sanctioned form of racing. He won the 2009 King of the Hammers race, as well as several 2012 and 2013 national championship races.
All right, I'm gonna start cooking some asada first.
But unlike many of his counterparts, he has to juggle running the family business and racing.
You gotta pull the choke, son. Hey. It's cool to see where the sport's grown and where our team has grown to. I do look back with a little regret. You know, it's hard to say this, but like, I love working, and so I built the company with my dad and my brother. We worked really hard on our day jobs, and so I didn't get to go to every event and run for season championships and do quite as much as, you know, I really would have liked to have. I look back and kind of wish I had done a little more of that if I could have, but it's been an awesome ride. You can't do it without this whole family of people and make it all happen still, so probably the best part of it really is all the friendship and the family more than the racing. Even though it's fun to win and everything, it's still like, gotta make it fun, because if you're not enjoying this part of the racing part, then you're not gonna really love it, you know? Getting the team to where it's at now and watching it grow with Ultra 4, and how the whole King of the Hammers sort of shaped everything, has really been a cool experience to be part of.
This year, Jason and many of his Ultra 4 competitors are competing at the Mint 400 for a chance to be named the Triple Crown champion.
So the Triple Crown Off-Road is an Ultra 4 backed event that we're going to go to. King of the Hammers is our rock event. We're going to do the Mint 400 as our desert event, and we're going to go to the Crandon Fall Race, the big house, for our short course venue. We're going to crown a single car and a single driver. It's the only rule for the series. They have to stay in the same vehicle. They can't switch cars and do that kind of thing. And you'll find out whose car and who is the driver is the most capable for all three of those disciplines of racing. I really care about performance. The only reason I'm racing is to go out and win. If we're going to put all this effort into it, my friends are going to put in all this time. We wouldn't have remained competitive if I wasn't able to get the support of all the friends and family. Obviously, last year was a big change for us getting a crew chief. And we're going to go out there to race. I want to be on the best products that there are out there in the industry. And that was a pretty easy decision for me to switch over to BFG and have that on our car. It also felt good to go back home. I was with them for 10 years, started off my career with them. To go back with them and be part of that it's a great feeling. I got a lucky opportunity last year to be part of the Mint. I stood in line with the truck for 10 hours to get through contingency, and I was never bored because it's such an event all the way through, going down Fremont Street and having the vendor support. It's something that you have to see. I mean, you have to go to it and check it out because there's so much action, there's so much activity. The Pit Crew Challenge, the contingency event, and then building on that with all the stuff that's going to happen this year with new people entering the series like the Ultra 4 guys. I mean, it's going to be a festival of off-road.
It's the end of lap 1 of 3 at the Great American Off-Road Race, and nearly 200 off-road veterans are starting to stream into the main pit. Harley Letner managed to hold off the hungry pack of vicious trick trucks and remained out front, followed by Apdaly Lopez, Rob MacCachren, Josh Daniel, Victor Gruber, Bryce Menzies, and Ryan Pohlman. Harley flew into his pit for fuel and tires. His crew raced to prep him for his next lap, and he was out in 72 seconds. Bryce Menzies, meanwhile, dashed into his pit and was serviced in a mere 42 seconds. The lead pack tore out of the main pit and back onto the course for lap 2. Apdaly Lopez managed to move out front in the main pit, followed by Josh Daniel and Rob MacCachren. Rob began to reel Josh in and tapped his bumper twice, when suddenly all hell broke loose. Rob's trick truck went rolling down the racecourse on the outside of a hard left turn. Fortunately, he and his co-driver were not injured. Up front, Apdaly Lopez continued to press the pace. Josh Daniel was now free and clear of the pressure from Rob Mack, but Victor Gruber was beginning to pick up his pace. Letner, meanwhile, hadn't given up on the overall win and was still in the mix. And Bryce Menzies was lurking dangerously close. Bryce knew from experience not to push too hard. Not yet, at least. Just when things seemed to be going good for Josh Daniel, they suddenly went very bad. His drivetrain began to fail near race mile 28, and he was forced to pull off the course. Unfortunately for Josh, he would not return to the race. Meanwhile, Letner was using the rain and lack of dust to try to reel Bryce Menzies in on a tight section of the course. His Class 1 car was more nimble in the python-shaped hill climb, but Bryce wasn't giving up an inch. Apdaly Lopez and Victor Gruber both came screaming through on their way towards the Vision Wheel shooting range near race mile 53. Gruber is no stranger to off-road racing, but to be in contention at the Mint with a relatively new trick truck was a remarkable feat. Bryce Menzies came ripping past moments later, hot on the gas. Several minutes back, Harley Letner wasn't about to give up. He may have relinquished the overall lead, but he was still racing the other Class 1 cars for a class victory. The BFGoodrich Tires Mint 400, powered by Monster Energy on ABC. Brought to you by Fox Shocks, redefine your limits, and U-Theory, bridging the gap between the best that nature and science have to offer. And Four Wheel Parts, Jeep parts, truck accessories, and expert advice with low prices and fast shipping. And Vision Wheel, the nation's leading providers of custom wheels for cars and trucks. And Rigid Industries, own the night. It's the halfway point for the most grueling and challenging off-road race in America. And 35 Class 6100 trucks were still doing battle on the chewed-up race course. Terry Householder had moved out front, followed by Monster Energy's Bobby Pecoy and Matt Laughlin. Nick Mills was still in the hunt, however. This race was far from over. Out front in the trick truck class, Carlos Apdaly Lopez was driving like a man possessed. He was just ahead of Victor Gruber and veteran racer Bryce Menzies. both of whom had moved up the ranks after Rob MacCachren and Josh Daniel had fallen by the wayside. Jesse Jones sat in 6th place, just ahead of Larry Rossler in the 96 trick truck. Larry had quietly moved from 10th into 4th overall on corrected time. Down course, Lopez made his way through the Fox Proving Grounds at breakneck speed, followed closely behind by Gruber and then Menzies, who began to pick up the pace. Seconds later, Bryce passed remote pit B while his crew did a quick visual inspection. The Mint 400 racecourse was now deteriorating rapidly, creating huge, rutted, sandy washes that threw the racer trucks around like rag dolls. Were it not for their suspension and unrestricted horsepower, these 5-ton demons would be stuck instantly. Even so, as each racer came through the sand and silt, they were perilously close to disaster. One false move and they could be tumbling down the course. Up ahead, Abdali made his way through chokers a second time and kept the gas pedal mashed. He was followed by Gruber in 2nd and Menzies in his Red Bull trick truck in 3rd. Letner wasn't far behind and making up time he had lost in the main pit at the end of lap 1. Larry Rossler and Jesse Jones had emerged as new chase pack leaders and were applying forward pressure. Both were dark horses, guys who could win from behind in an instant. As the racers headed toward the finish line and came into radio contact with their pits, they began to discuss their strategy. Do they pit now and risk losing a spot while fueling, or try to overtake one another, gain ground, and hope to make it to remote pit A? Race leader Apdaly Lopez hit the infield and floated through the old short course track. Gruber and Menzies came next, mixed up with some slower 6100 trucks. The 3 leaders, followed closely by Letner and Rossler, tore their way through the infield. Troy Herbst and Justin Lofton emerged minutes later, down on time but not totally out of contention yet. Ryan Pullman came blasting by. He had moved into 5th on corrected time at the end of lap 2. 23-year-old Carlos Apdaly Lopez hails from Tecate, Baja California, and is a second-generation off-road racer under his father, Juan Carlos Lopez. Abdali made his professional off-road racing debut in 2011, and since then has racked up multiple wins in the desert and stadium super trucks. The soft-spoken Mexican native won the Baja 1000 in 2017, solidifying his place among the best in the sport. But the Mint 400 has eluded him thus far. Last year, Abdali was leading the race on the final lap when he suffered a catastrophic engine failure. This time around, he is poised, prepared, and eager to race with the best in the harsh Nevada desert.
I got started in off-road racing by my dad until I was a little kid. He was racing motorcycles, then he bought me a little motorcycle, then I started race on all locas races in Tecate. With the pass of the time, I started racing in Mexicali, some code races, and then in 2011 I started racing a score season on a ATV. It was on 2011. We went to La Salada to test my dad Class 8. He asked me if I want to drive the Class 8 just for fun. So I said yes. I go to make one loop, and then when I come back to the chase track, everybody was like, "Did you get a shortcut?" No, why? You did the same time as your dad. We talk about this with Clyde Stacy and Justin Madney, and they asked me, "Do you want to race Class 10? And I say, yes. So they asked to the closest races in La Salada, and it was called Grand Prix. So they sent to me the Class 10, and there was my first race.
Pues ya una vez que crecimos y conocimos en 1994 las carreras de fuera de camino, pues nos gustó más lo que fue el off-road. No, pues nos sentimos pues muy orgullosos, ¿no? De que pues el clase 8 fue el que ahora sí que nos dio a conocer, ¿no? En lo que fueron carreras de fuera de camino. Pues cuando empezamos a correr en el clase 8, ¿no? Pues sí nos motivaba de que pues en algunas bajas nos tocaba ir entre el primer grupo de los 20 carros, entre clase 1 y trophies, y ahí estábamos nosotros en ese grupo. Y pues siempre es el anhelo, yo creo, de todo corredor, correr en un trophy track, pero pues no había posibilidades hasta que Clyde Stacy de RPM pues nos dio la oportunidad de correr su trophy, y pues así inició lo que es ahora ya en los trophy track. Pues me siento muy orgulloso, ¿no? De Carlos Abdali, de que pues junto al compartir el volante con él pues logramos ganar esta baja 1000, y pues como en otras bajas 1000 pues ya andábamos ahí en los segundos lugares, primeros, y pues todo esto se nos dio, y pues gracias a Dios aquí estamos, y pues hay que seguir peleando.
Running BFG is a advantage because there is a lot of other brand of tires around the off-road racing, but you can see BFG won the Mint 400, won the 1000, and that gives you a more advantage against the other drivers because you have more confidence on the tire. You can go harder on the rocks, on the sand. That make a lot for us. When we are in a desert race, it's not me, it's about my co-driver, it's about the guys on the shop, by Geyser Brothers prepping the track, it's about the RPM owners, Clyde Stacy and Justin Madney. We work on every detail to try to have the perfection on every race. I just won the biggest race on my country, so win the Mint 400 and become the first Mexican to win is gonna be something amazing for my career and for the rest of the team.
"200 off-road racers have been competing in the afternoon unlimited race for nearly 4 hours straight on the most difficult and exhausting off-road race course in America. The leaders of the trick truck class have come screaming into the main pit for their last splash of fuel and fresh tires. Apdaly Lopez, Victor Gruber, and Bryce Menzies all stopped in their respective pits. In a race that can be won or lost by less than 30 seconds, a fast pit stop is crucial for success. Gruber was in and out quickly. Meanwhile, Menzies executed a 32-second stop and was back out as well. Ryan Pohlman, who had moved into 5th place on corrected time, came into his pit. His team moved fast, and minutes later he tore past Troy Herbst at nearly 90 miles per hour past the exit of pit road. Up ahead, Apdaly Lopez remained physically out front and looked strong. The young Baja racer kept his composure as he prepared his final lap. Victor Gruber was still on his tail and was having a fantastic race so far. But he had the former Mint 400 champion and Las Vegas native Bryce Menzies right on his bumper. Holding Menzies off for an entire lap was going to be tough. Harley Letner was still very much in the fight. He had a 20-minute lead over the next Class 1 car and was still chasing down the leaders for the overall win. Several minutes later, the lead pack came racing past race mile 27. The huge ruts and whoops tested their suspensions and wavering arm strength. Now was the time when experience and patience paid off. Larry Rossler, Jesse Jones, and Troy Herbst had formed a ferocious chase pack just behind the leaders, waiting for them to make a critical mistake as the sun started to set. Minutes later, it was still Abdali out front, followed closely by Gruber and Menzies. But the off-road veteran Larry Rossler had now passed Letner and was applying pressure to the lead pack. Pohlman and Herbst came ripping through next with their lights blazing, followed by Justin Lofton and Jesse Jones. The Mint race course had been chewed up for multiple laps by 400 racers, beginning at 6 a.m. that day. And now, it was completely shrouded in darkness. Racing this course at these speeds under these conditions was only possible for the most seasoned off-road racers. Up ahead, Abdali hit the vision wheel shooting range for the final time. He looked smooth, but noticeably slower than his daylight runs. He knew he had to keep it together for just 50 more miles. Abdali came off the pavement section and into the gravel quarry when suddenly he pulled over. He and his co-driver jumped out of the truck and both raced over to the right front tire. The two scrambled frantically to place a jack under the truck and pull off the flat. Precious seconds began to tick away. Behind them, Victor Gruber came around the corner and into the quarry. But out of nowhere, Bryce Menzies attacked. He took an inside line and passed Gruber right at the entrance. It was a brilliant move, and there would be no place for Gruber to attempt to pass in the tight quarry section. It was all going according to plan for Menzies. Now, the hunt was on. Up ahead, Abdali and his co-driver finished making the tire swap, replaced the flat on the back of the truck, and sped off into the darkness. 3 minutes had elapsed, but they were still out front. Would it be enough to hold off Menzies? Now in the pitch-black cover of night, Abdali struggled to maintain his speed in the tricky quarry. Out of nowhere, Bryce Menzies suddenly appeared right on Abdali's bumper. As if the chewed-up, dusty course wasn't bad enough, there was still plenty of lap traffic ahead. Abdali dropped the pedal in hopes of regaining the lead on corrected time as they raced towards the finish line. He would need to finish a full 2 minutes ahead of Bryce to earn his victory. The two racers surged through Pit B and back out into the night, each pushing as hard as possible to gain an edge. Minutes later, Abdali came screaming through the finish line at full speed, still physically in first place. Then, minutes later, it was Bryce Menzies. Victor Gruber came through next in third physically, followed closely by Larry Rossler and Ryan Pullman. The crowd of thousands waited anxiously as the Best in the Desert team carefully tallied the final timing of each racer. Then, Mint 400 owners Josh and Matt Martelli made the announcement. Bryce Menzies had done it. In a stunning come-from-behind victory, he had claimed his second Mint 400 championship, winning by a mere 28 seconds. Bryce, his co-driver Pete Mortensen, and his teammates celebrated their victory on the Mint 400 main stage in front of the massive crowd. They had earned a $10,000 check from BFGoodrich tires, $10,000 courtesy of Fox Shocks, and the coveted Mint 400 overall championship trophy. But more importantly, they had made history.
It's my hometown race, Mint 400. Every single off-road racer is here. It's so brutal, this course, and to come out and win this again is amazing. We had a flawless day. No flat tires, no problems. Just kept on tracking, kept on going. We started 7th and just kept picking them off. And towards the end, it was me and Abdali, and it was close within seconds. So the last mile, we were pushing as hard as I could. I almost put this thing on its side, but my team does an amazing job. And to win this, my hometown race for my grandpa, it means a lot to me, man. This is one for the books.
Apdaly Lopez would have to settle for second place this year. Meanwhile, Ryan Pullman earned a very respectable third-place finish from the back of the pack. Here's a look at all of the Unlimited class winners. Just finishing the Mint is an incredible feat, and this year proved to be one of the most challenging races on record. Of the 400 race teams that left the start line, less than half of them would finish, proving once again that the Great American Off-Road Race is truly one of the toughest on the planet. The Mint 400 will return to Las Vegas in March next year. Visit themint400.com or facebook.com/themint400 for complete details.
Ladies